Well guys, we are on lesson 3. If you have not had a chance to go back and watch lesson 1 where we talk about setting up your camera and we talk about ISO and white balance, you can pause it now and go back there. I'll put a link in the description below. Or if you're ready and you know all of that and you're ready to move on, then welcome to lesson 3. Today we're going to be talking all about aperture. And aperture is what's going to make your photography look more professional. And I'm going to tell you all about it. Okay, so a quick recap from our last lesson. I promise it'll be quick for those of you who already know. But the way that I like to describe things is how I see things and how I treat every session that I do. So when I get to my session, the first thing that I do is I look around at the lighting. What is the lighting like? Am I going to be shooting inside? Am I going to be shooting outside? Is it a cloudy day? Is it a sunny day? Am I going to be shooting in the shade? Am I going to be shooting in direct sun? That's going to help determine your ISO. So I'm going to set my ISO. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my white balance. And the white balance is going to help determine the color of the lighting. So is it a warm, full sun, sunny kind of day, or are you going to be shooting in the shade, or again inside? And you're going to have to tell your camera what is a true white. And that's going to be when you're going to set your white balance. Now, the third thing that I do when I'm shooting, and people do things differently, but this is the way that I do things when I'm shooting, is I look at how many people am I photographing, because I photograph people. So you need to keep in mind how much of your image do you want to be in focus. So do you have one person you're shooting, 2 people you're shooting? Is it going to be a family of 5? Is it going to be a family reunion of 50? You need to know this in order to set your aperture correctly. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, remember, always, the first thing that we do is we start with a clean lens, because you need a clean lens to take nice, clean pictures. So I'm going to use my lens pen. And I went over how to use that, but I do love it because of the brush and then a little carbon pad. You know, it's awesome. It just makes it so clear. And again, just a reminder, I'm gonna put the link to LensPen in the description below, but they are offering everyone of my viewers 15% off of their website. Just follow that link and use the code GOLLY. And you'll get 15% off. And these things last forever. Clean, this one was extra dirty. Perfect. All right, and then put it back in, and that little carbon pad on the inside is gonna refill it, clean it up, ready for the next use. Now, just a reminder, each week, one lucky person is going to go home with, or be sent, because I'll be shipping this to you, the lens pen DSLR cleaning kit and the Good Golly Photography Quick Tips and Tricks book. So this kit is amazing. The awesome people at LensPen sent these for me to send to you. And we've got this last week's winner. I've already dropped it in the mail. I dropped it in the mail on Monday, so they should be getting that soon. And all you have to do to win this is to make a comment down below if you would like an extra entry, subscribe, and then go to Crafternoons with Molly on Instagram, and all you have to do is in one of the comments say, hey, I subscribed to your channel, and then you'll get an extra entry into the drawing. All right, so with this last week we practiced using in program mode, which a lot of photographers would be like, oh, why would you use program mode? You might as well be in auto. Because we're doing things baby steps. I want little successes. I want you out there shooting. So program mode is basically the step up from auto, but you could control the ISO and the white balance. Well, now this week we're going to go a step more, and we're going to be shooting in Aperture Priority. So if you look at your little dial on your camera, you're going to see, depending on your camera brand, you're either gonna have an A if you're a Nikon shooter or an AV for a Canon shooter. Now, I don't really know where everybody else falls, but you can look at your manual and figure it out. I'm sure it's one of the two of these. So you're going to set your camera to Aperture Priority. So now what your camera is gonna allow you to do is, we're gonna still be able to control the ISO, we're still gonna be able to control the white balance, but now we're gonna get to tell our camera how we want the aperture to be. So the aperture is the opening in your lens, okay? So it controls how much light is coming in to the camera. When you're looking at an aperture setting, and we have everything from, depending on your lens and depending on what your lens offers, you can have anywhere from an f1.4 all the way up to f22, and you will see that aperture is also referred to as the f-stop. You're going to see that there are different sizes of the opening. The smaller the aperture number, the bigger the opening. The bigger the aperture number, the smaller the opening. And what this is going to show you is how much of your image can be in focus. Okay, so sometimes you'll hear the term depth of field. And the best way to describe this is when you're shooting and you choose your aperture number, your aperture setting, that's going to control how much is in focus, your depth of field. So it's going to determine how much is in focus from what the object that you're focusing on is where it starts. It doesn't start with your lens, it starts with where you are focusing on. And everything beyond that and everything in front of it slowly begins to fall out of focus. Same thing going out. Everything beside it and going out will slowly become more and more out of focus. If you have a very shallow depth of field, that means less space this way and this way will be sharp. If you have a very great and a very large depth of field, you're gonna have a large space going forward and backwards, from side to side and forward and backward, that's going to be sharp and in focus. So you'll see if, for example, when I'm photographing a large bridal party, I need to use a larger f-stop, because a larger f-stop number, because, and I have to clarify that, a larger f-stop number, because if I want the whole bridal party to be in focus, then I need to have that smaller opening, okay? So I want that larger depth of field. So one little tip that I use, it's not exact, but it will help you remember which direction it goes, is I tend to shoot my f-stop based on the number of people I'm photographing. So if I am shooting at my lens, this lens right here is a 200 millimeter lens, 2.8, okay? So 2.8, you're gonna see that little number on there. 2.8 shows you that is as wide open as it's gonna get, okay? The lens that I'm shooting with right here will actually go to 1.4, so it'll go really wide open. Now, the downside of shooting at a 1.4 is that it is a very shallow depth of field, which means you could get, if you're really close to your subject, it could be the difference of one eye being in focus and the other one not, okay? So you really want to kind of play with that and be careful with those really wide open aperture settings. For this one, since it's a 2.8, I know that if I'm going to take a picture of one person, 2 people, 3 people, sometimes if they're tied together, 4 people, I can shoot it at 2.8, okay? And that means what's great about being able to shoot wide open like that is that shallow depth of field is going to be what you're looking for. It's what people associate with the professional portraits. You get that dreamy background, you get that bokeh, you get those little orbs of light going around the subject. That's what people really want. They want that really dreamy background that's all hazy and out of focus and their subject just really, really sharp. Now if you have a kit lens, you're going to see that your aperture setting can go from a 3.5 to 5.6 maybe. Well, what that means is as you zoom in and out, it's going to adjust the aperture setting so that if you zoom in on an object, 5.6 is as big as it can go. Whereas if you zoom out, then you can go to a 3.5. So keep that in mind, because a lot of people get frustrated when they're shooting, and they'll, especially when they're taking my workshops, they'll be outside practicing and all of a sudden be like, wait, why is mine at 5.6 and it won't go anymore? I can't scroll it anymore. That's because you're zoomed too far out. And so bring it back in if you want that 3.5 and use your body as the zoom in order to get that to be nice and to get that 3.5 and to get that wide open aperture setting. So I know this is a whole lot of information that I'm giving you guys, but I'm gonna try to get it out there. I want you to practice. This is one of those things, the more you play with it, the easier it gets. And on Sunday, when I do Sunday's video, I will be shooting in Aperture Priority, and I'm gonna show you some ways, some tricks to kind of get around maybe not having the more expensive lens. I'm gonna show you some things that you can do to make your images really stand out and look more professional. Now if you guys, just have the kit lens, the lens that came with your camera, and you're curious, what it would be like to shoot with the professional lens, but aren't really sure that you're ready for that type of purchase just yet, Lens Rental is a great option. I'll put the link to them below. It's a great camera equipment rental company. You can rent anything. I mean, they have a huge supply of equipment. But they're a great option. That way you can rent it, play around with it for the weekend or during the week or however long you want it, and see if there's enough of a difference for you to want to go ahead and buy that nicer lens. Just be prepared. If you do fall in love with the lens, they do have an option that you can purchase that lens, so at a discounted rate, since you've already paid for the rental. So, but again, I'll put the link to that in the description below. I know this is a whole lot of information that I'm giving you guys, but I'm gonna try to get it out there. I want you to practice. This is one of those things, the more you play with it, the easier it gets. And on Sunday, when I do Sunday's video, I will be shooting in Aperture Priority, and I'm gonna show you some ways, some tricks to kind of get around maybe not having the more expensive lens. I'm gonna show you some things that you can do to make your images really stand out and look more professional. We need to adjust our aperture setting. Now, every camera is different. Even within the Canon line, there are differences. That's one of the things in my workshop that I do, is I do like being able to go around to each person and help them figure out where on their camera their aperture setting is. Oftentimes people will see an AV button on the back of their camera, and they'll have to push that while scrolling in order to adjust that aperture. But if you look on your little dial, so here you'll see you have got a series of numbers. All right, you're gonna have what looks like there's a fraction there. So that fraction is actually going to be your shutter speed. Well, since we have it in aperture priority mode, it doesn't matter. We're not gonna be using anything about shutter speed. We're gonna let the camera decide our shutter speed for us. So we're going to be looking at that F number, all right? So mine, on the back of my camera, I can see F2.8. On the top of my camera, when I look at the little dials, I'm just gonna see 2.8, all right? But that's gonna be, it's gonna help you know. Normally your aperture setting, you're gonna see it is gonna be that smaller number. Once you have set your aperture, and what I want you to do is I want you to set your aperture setting to the lowest number you can get to, so the widest opening we can get for your aperture. So that's gonna depend on your lens. Now, the nice thing when you do upgrade and you get one of the professional level lenses, the nice thing is that aperture is going to stay, that you're gonna have 2.8 whether I'm zoomed in or out. Now this is a prime lens, which means I'm the zoom, remember? This thing stays the same. If I wanna zoom in, I gotta walk up, okay? So what I'm going to do or what I want you to do this week is I want you to practice shooting in the Aperture Priority mode. And I want you to get out there and just play around with it. Maybe try setting it as wide open as you can, that lowest number. Shoot the same object and then change that aperture each time and see how the image changes. Okay, and that's gonna be the best way to learn this, is to get out there and practice. A lot of times what I like to do, I have my little journal, and they have even smaller ones. This is a company called May Designs, and a lot of times if you go to their website, I think it's maydesigns.com, I think is what it is. I'm not really sure. But if you put in your email address, they give you like 15% off the first order. But I love them because they have one that's a little bit smaller than this one. And I can throw it in my camera bag and just kind of track my settings and just kind of see. Now, you can obviously see your settings on your camera and see, you know, how you shot something. But you know, I'm used to the old school film days where that's what we did, is we had to write image 1, this was my setting, image 2, you know, so you could kind of see the difference. But I like keeping notes just because it helps me when I'm going back to decide, oh, I really like that. What did I do differently that time? And it just kind of helps, you know, it helps me remember that. But it's real fun because you can pick out the patterns and what you wanted to say and all that. By the way, I've had a couple of you message me and ask about my camera bag. This is by Kelly Moore. Her bags are my favorite. They're really, really sturdy. And it has like a little bucket, like a little insert that you take out. And so you can just carry it as like a regular bag. But you'll see it's thick. So I'm not worried if I accidentally drop this, that my equipment's gonna get damaged. But anyway, she has a bunch of different choices, so if any of you are interested in checking those out, she's offered $25 off of a bag, which is awesome. I'll put the link in the description down below if you want to go check those out. So it's real fun. Well guys, I hope you get out and practice this week. Be sure to follow along on my Instagram because I'm gonna be putting out some little shooting prompts because I wanna give you guys some ideas. Sometimes it's hard, you think, I don't know what to shoot, I have no idea. So I'm gonna give you guys some challenges throughout the week of things to photograph. And I would love to see some of your work too. So be sure to tag me in them so that I can see, you know, the kind of work, the kind of things that you're shooting. If you have not had a chance to subscribe, please subscribe and hit that little bell icon so you'll be notified when I upload a video. And guys, thank you so much for joining me. Have fun shooting. We'll meet back on Sunday and have a wonderful crafternoon.